Okay, folks, here it is, the second half of the French and Indian War. Here is where you are going to fill out the rest of your battle chart in preparation for Friday's quiz. Again, we're talking open notes, okay? No need to struggle. Of course, you'll have two presentations you can draw from, this one and the one from 2 days ago. So let's get into it. So, where we stopped last time is that the British are stopped at Fort Duquesne. Things look pretty dire for them. The French right now are winning all over the place, and the French are pretty much stomping on the throats of the British, who are under some pretty bad leadership up until this point. So for 2 years, the British are taking it on the chin, yet they don't take it enough on the chin to where they want to give up. So if we look here in this bullet section here, the second bullet, we have, meanwhile, the French won important victories again. They capture Fort Oswego. They capture Fort Henry on Lake George. These are two pretty big places, considering that, this is part of the place in dispute, okay? But there's going to be a game changer quite soon. But first, let's do this. Let's fill in the rest of our chart on the French side up until 1757. So you stopped the other day at Fort Duquesne. Now let's get into 1756 and 57, where they win at Fort Oswego, and that is on Lake Ontario. And in 1756 and 57 as well, Fort William Henry is captured on Lake George. And right now, as you can see, over here, a lot of points. Over here, no points. So right now, the French are pitching a shutout, the perfect game. They're dealing, okay? But there's a ringer on the bench for the British, and his name is, John Edwards. That's a quote by him. Not really that important, but I'll get to the ringer in a second. He said, "God indeed is remarkably frowning upon us everywhere. Our enemies get up above us very high, and they are brought down very low. They are the head, and we are the tail. What will become of us, God only knows." At this point, with Edwards, the minister at this time in Massachusetts, the point he's uttering here is that things look dark right now for the British. Who is the savior? Who's this big free agent signing they're going to bring in to kind of level this playing field off? How can they even get on the board? And as of now, your British colonists are quite afraid of the French coming, not only encroaching on their land at this point, but maybe putting them under their own rule, okay, and flying the French flag. But here comes the big free agent. His name is William Pitt. Okay, William Pitt should sound familiar. Sounds a lot like a U.S. city out in the Ohio. Pittsburgh. That's right. So if you are Pittsburgh Grace, who was in one of my classes, you know who I'm talking about. So William Pitt, he says, "I believe I can save this nation, and that no one else, the way no one else can." And Pitt's declaration again is that of confidence. However, he is very, very, very intelligent. So in the year 1757, Pitt becomes the new head of the British government. He served as Secretary of State, and then later will become Prime Minister. Pitt is a bold leader, and he decides, and he gets in his head, we're going to win this war in North America, because we are going to pull all our resources, we'll pour our money, we'll get the best leadership over there. It's crazy because we already outnumber the French 10-1. We really should be well ahead and really staking our claim in the lands over there. And he believes that once the Brits win, that the Brits could focus on victory in other parts of the world. But they had to win this, because right now this was embarrassing. Okay, and Pitt does formulate a plan. Now, I want to bring something to your attention that really has not a lot to do with the French anymore, but has something to do with William Pitt. He's a Secretary of State, which is interesting when you think of somebody who is going to come around about 200 years from this point, and Winston Churchill was also, before he was in the military, serves in government, and then serves again in the military during World War I, and actually fought himself for getting a lot of men killed. We have a similar situation here. So Pitt declares he can win in this part of the Ohio. And now let's see what happens and how the British intend on doing so. So Pitt sends his best generals to North America. And he also talks to the colonists, and he says, listen, we need your support for the war, and we'll pay you if you are a man and you want to serve in our army or military, and you can bring supplies. We will reimburse you that money because we are so confident that we will win. So, under his leadership, the tide of battles, all battles, seem to turn. So in 1758, Major General Geoffrey Amherst ends up capturing Louisbourg. And this is the most important fort in French Canada, or as the French say, Louisbourg, okay? So that year, the British also win more support from their Iroquois Indian allies. Now, the Iroquois, they're playing what French plays with us during the Revolutionary War. They're waiting to see if the Brits can actually win this war. And when they see that Pitt and his men are making progress, they realize, hey, guess what? They can win this war. And we're going to jump on their side. So when we go to here, let's go to our battle chart again. So at 58, we have the Brits getting on the scoreboard. Touchdown, Britain. And we have Louisbourg is captured. Okay? And after that, as I said, we have these Iroquois tribes that were persuaded by the Delaware Indians, also the Shawnee, allies of the French, at Fort Duquesne. The Delaware end up abandoning the French soldiers and the Delaware when they realize they can't win. So without the Delaware Indians, the French can't hold the fort. They have to give it up, and acting as fast as they can, the Brits go in, they take the fort, and they rename it Fort Pitt after the British leader, and later it's going to become the wonderful Steel City of Pittsburgh. Which is kind of a neat city, man. You ever go there? Great hot dog restaurant. All they do is serve hot dogs. It's pretty good stuff. All right. Let's go to our battle chart now. And right now, here we got the Brits on a roll right now. Okay, so 1758 still. They go back to Fort Duquesne yet a third time, and they capture and rename it Fort Pitt, which will later become the city of Pittsburgh, which is located in western Pennsylvania. And as you can see here, it looks like it's spelled wrong on this PowerPoint. I will have to correct that one, okay? Now we move on. So, the British enjoy even they enjoy, like, the summer of 59 is like one of the ones you write in your yearbook about for the British. I mean, they love this. They succeed on pushing the French from Fort Niagara out in Niagara Falls, Crown Point, and something's actually going to come up again in the Revolutionary War with Ethan Allen, Fort Ticonderoga. Yeah, the things they name your pencils after. Alright? So Pitt sends General James Wolfe to Quebec, which is the capital of New France, and in present day is located in Canada. James Wolfe's a good military leader, but his story here is quite interesting and tragic. But first, let's get into 1759, where they run off a series of victories, where they win at Ticonderoga, they win at Niagara, and they certainly win at Crown Point. We move on. Quebec City becomes this vital place. And anytime you can take your enemy's capital, man, hey, the Brits tried it during the Revolutionary War, and they would have had it had Gentleman Johnny Burgoyne had not gotten delayed and had met up with this triangle of revolutionary generals. They would have taken Philadelphia, but that's another story for another time. But this is very similar. So the Brits want to take Quebec City, all right? And it's a vital defense to New France. And without Quebec, the French can't control the river. The St. Lawrence River is up for grabs, and something major is going to happen here. Quebec is well defended, and any time of war, you want to be the person that's at the top of the mountain. And I will relate this to modern day times where Afghanistan and Pakistan have the high ground a lot of times. Pakistan actually looks into Afghanistan a little bit, and that's why it's such a strategic point, and why we let them go in some areas of some sketchy areas when it comes to terrorism and things like that, because we kind of need parts of their country to be able to, basically spy on the Taliban. So, but back to this, we go to Quebec City, and we just talked about if they capture Quebec City, they capture that river, it's all over, just as somebody were to capture the Mississippi here in the United States. So, Wolfe's dilemma. Well, he has a dilemma. He has to force the French General Montcalm out from behind Quebec's deep fortified fort. Wolfe has to, and the second problem is he has to get all this done before winter. He can't just sit around and wait. Now, Montcalm, who's a great general, well respected, had 15,000 men behind that city's walls, but General James Wolfe led an army of 22,000, so we're talking a lot of men here, but again, the Brits outnumber the French. So what happens? He devises a bold plan to capture Quebec. He knew that Montcalm only had a few soldiers guarding that cliff, so what he does is he sneaks in at night, and he orders his British troops to move quietly in small boats to the foot of the cliff. Sound familiar, doesn't it? Sounds like somebody crossing the Delaware. So under darkness, as we look at this picture here, it's pretty cool. It's not too dark, but you get the idea. They swarm the shore. The next morning, Montcalm wakes up to find 4,000 troops that are on what they call the Plains of Abraham, which is a grassy field which is just outside the city. And during this battle, we have the death of the French general Marquis de Montcalm. When he tells surgeons that he would not recover, Montcalm replied calmly, or the surgeon tells him, "You're not going to recover, sir." He says, "I am glad of it." Well, because he doesn't want to be embarrassed, right? And if you look over here, James Wolfe is also injured, and the British soldier gives him the news, the same news, that they had won. Wolfe reportedly whispers, "Now God be praised. I will die in peace." So he dies a hero. All right, Montcalm, during this battle, marches his troops out to meet the enemy. A pretty violent battle takes place, and both generals are killed. And on September 18th of 1759, Quebec surrenders to the British. Okay, so now we're going to fill out the rest of our chart. Okay, the final battle is right here. It's the Battle of Quebec, the Super Bowl, everything you could ever want. All right, so without Quebec, the French are unable to supply their forts, and just like, again, reference to World War II, just like when the Germans couldn't supply their soldiers deep in that Russian winter, they're going to lose the war. Same thing here. So what happens at the end of every war is we have a treaty. Hey, we're going to end this war officially. You won. We kind of shake hands, maybe begrudgingly in some cases, but here we have the Treaty of Paris. And what does Britain get? Well, Britain gets and receives Canada and all French lands east of the Mississippi, and also Florida. So now they have Florida in the colonies. They don't have to worry about the Spanish coming up. France is allowed to keep the islands in the Gulf of St. Lawrence. France keeps the key thing, though. They end up keeping a lot of their sugar fields down in the Caribbean and in the West Indies. Spain gives up Florida to Britain, but they get all the land west of the Mississippi. And that means that they get the vital port of New Orleans, which is going to also play a major part in our history down the road. We will learn that next year with Dr. Rudman. So, and they also get to keep, most of their empire. However, the fighting will drag on for more years, and here, this is why we get it. We have to wait till 1763. And as a result of this is a map here where you can see who gains what and how they gain it. The red here is where the British before, and the pink is all this is what the Brits gain. All this is what the Spanish gain, and well, the French, they kind of lost a lot of territory here. And we will finish up here. I'm going to show you this one last time. Let's take a look at it. Make sure you have this filled out and fill it out correctly. Okay, all this is fair game for Thursday. All right, folks. Have yourselves a nice day. That will conclude pretty much the French and Indian War. We might have one more class where we just kind of wrap it up. Thanks for being a great audience, and I'll catch you later.